On Eldrazi Tron. You see him on the left-hand side, taking on Jonathan Job. Gruul Karn is the name of Jonathan's deck. You might want to hop over to Cardboard Live, take a look at what Jonathan's working with. This is an interesting little brew. It has some similarities to old Ponzalis, but focusing a little bit more heavily on the Karn package.
Yeah, and I think the key for this type of matchup is going to be Karn finding that ensnaring bridge.
Absolutely. Eldrazi Tron pretty reliant on doing damage through combat. They have some other options for sure. Walking Ballista comes to mind, Endbringer. Certainly ways to push through a little damage, but in general, they want to be attacking. And Ken Edwards, with the signature card of this Eldrazi deck on turn 1, Eldrazi Temple. Starts with Eldrazi Temple, so different from starts without. I would say the same about Jonathan's deck, though. Starts with Arbor Elf, very different from starts without. And there is the turn 1 Arbor Elf for Jonathan Job.
Yeah, in order for Jonathan to keep up in this type of matchup, he's going to need that Arbor Elf, the Utopia Sprawl.
Oh, double Eldrazi Temple start from Ken Edwards. That means turn 2 Thought Not Seer. That's why you play this deck, right? That's what you're here for.
And this is interesting because a lot of decks I've seen Hexdrinker in, I'm not a real big fan of. But in this deck, it makes a lot of sense because you end up with a lot of extra mana that you need to put somewhere. And so having a one-mana threat like Hexdrinker that just can take over the game in the mid-game seems really appealing.
I agree with you. And the Eldrazi Tron deck, certainly removal light. It kind of has to cobble together its removal. So if Jonathan could start getting some level-ups going with that Hexdrinker, it just might outscale what Ken's doing. Thought Not Seer is going to take away the Utopia Sprawl, slowing down Jonathan's mana generation. Would have been an explosive turn this turn, had that Utopia Sprawl remained in hand. So it's time for the first Hexdrinker to come down. We did see 2 copies of Hexdrinker in Jonathan's hand. Thinking a little bit about the follow-up land.
So the interesting parts of this Gruul Karn list, main deck Ancient Grudge with main deck Liquid Metal Coating.
3 copies, Liquid Metal Coating.
And obviously the 4 Karn to go along with all of this.
That's wild stuff.
Well, I can see the appeal of it. In a metagame where you're expecting, the Urza decks just be such a huge portion of the metagame, you just have these 4 main deck hate cards that are spectacular against them.
Right. Karn a little bit on the downswing lately, I would say. Does seem poised for a comeback, though. And look at this. Jonathan just trying to get wide. Multiple Hexdrinkers now on the battlefield. What does Ken Edwards have as a response? Finds a 5th mana and a Reality Smasher already at the ready. Both those creatures going to head into the red zone. Ken looking to close this one out as quickly as possible. Doesn't want those Hexdrinkers to get out of hand.
Yeah, ideal start from Eldrazi Tron here. You get the turn 2 4/4 that takes the best card out of the opponent's hand, followed up with the 5/5 that has haste, and this is the way to go. Just all the pressure, get in the red zone.
Yeah, if Eldrazi Tron can't convert this game, you worry about the deck in general, right? Like this is what you live for. Turn 2 Thought Not Seer, turn 3 Reality Smasher. So Jonathan going to think about some blocks here. Going to trade off both those Hexdrinkers. Kill the Thought Not Seer. Take a card. Really looking for a payoff for all this mana he's been able to put together pretty quickly here with double Arbor Elf.
Yeah, and I think, on Jonathan's side, he's saying, Hexdrinker was my payoff, but I'm under so much pressure, I'm not going to invest that time into leveling up this creature. So let me trade it off here, keep my life total high, and get the extra card as soon as possible.
You can see where he's coming from. Going to play an untapped Stomping Ground and deploy Simian Spirit Guide. Craig, how do you feel about hard cast Simian Spirit Guide?
I mean, 3 mana, 2/2, can't get enough of that.
Yeah, that's a modern quality card right there. Here's a second Reality Smasher. Both rumble into the red zone.
Yeah, and this is the nightmare.
This is going to be tough for Jonathan to come back from. We're running out of time to get that ensnaring bridge going. It seems almost like an impossibility now.
Yeah, I'm not sure what Jonathan's hand is, but I think potentially Okay, he's just going to pack it up.
He says it's not good enough. Going to go ahead and scoop it up. And that means Ken Edwards up a game with Eldrazi over Gruul Karn. I'm not going to pretend to be an expert on how this matchup goes. It does seem to me, though, Gruul Karn should have the edge, but that was an incredible draw from Ken Edwards there.
Yeah, that's what you're trying to do if you're the Tron player, right? It's just that disruption followed by just so much pressure. And, I mean, I don't think we see a whole lot of sideboarding out of the Gruul Karn deck. Looking at this list, I can see these Obstinate Ballast coming in. The life total bump and the bigger body to trade in combat are both appealing.
Yep.
But Anger of the Gods doesn't line up well with a lot of what's going on in the other side. And the rest of the sideboard is all the artifacts that you want to be able to tutor for with your 4 main deck Karns.
Right. Both these decks, of course, Karn the Great Creator decks. That's why we see these deep wish boards. The only real sideboard card on Ken's side, 2 Surgical Extractions. Don't want that here. Is it possible Ken just shuffles up and presents the same 60 here?
I think that's what's going to happen.
And then on Jonathan's side, you're saying considering those Obstinate Baloths, but I mean, even that, I think there's some debate for just leaving that in the sideboard as well. You kind of need to establish your main plan, and you know it's going to tend to be good enough because, like we said, Ken just doesn't have that many ways to interact. It's just these wish targets out of the sideboard. If you can somehow contain Karns on the other side, you're in a pretty good spot.
Yeah, I wonder if he wants to shave some of these liquid metal coatings and some of these ancient grudges out of his main deck.
Okay.
They're just not... there's going to be too many times, I think, where the Eldrazi Tron player has a real aggressive start. And when those 2 pieces line up together in your hand, the ancient grudge and the liquid metal coating, it looks great. But when you only have one or the other, it's just pretty clunky.
Very true. I mean, what do you think about Jonathan's vulnerability to Chalice of the Void? How immune is he to that card? Obviously a lot of expensive spells, but you do see the Utopia Sprawls, the Arbor Elves, the Hex Drinkers all get picked off by Chalice of the Void. Does he have to account for that card in post-board games?
Yeah, so like I said, I think I would just shave a couple of these cards. He still has 4 main deck of Braids and the main deck Ancient Grudges. So,
of course.
So he's got a ton of answers there, and a lot of times he's going to play his 1-drop on turn 1, and then the opponent's going to deploy the Chalice for 1 on turn 2.
Sure.
And he's already moved past that point in his game plan.
It's a weird spot where both players may have some suboptimal cards in their main deck, but just nothing really to replace them with.
Yeah, this is not the matchups that each of these players were preparing for.
I think that's a very fair statement. Well, you know what I'm prepared for, Craig? Spending money on Magic cards. One of my favorite things to do.
Oh, I know you are.
On the planet. And this week, I am headed over to the non-English sale at StarCityGames.com. Huge savings on non-English singles through Tuesday. What's your opinion on non-English cards, Craig? Are you a fan of pimping out your decks in that fashion?
So I think a lot of the other languages have really interesting looks to them, which is the appeal for a lot of players. I know Jerry T.
Loves his Japanese cards.
Loves his Japanese cards. But I think in a competitive environment, it's just better if everyone has cards that most people in the tournament can read.
Okay. I mean, how do you determine that, though? I mean, you're just saying by your geographical location, that's the language you should lean towards?
Yes.
Okay.
That's a fair take,
no,
right?
I see what you're saying. Make things easier on your fellow competitors.
Well, we have so many cards now that have so much text.
Right.
And we talked about going through a limited format where all the Planeswalkers had static abilities that got forgotten all the time.
Sure.
And now when you make them not even in English anymore, it becomes that much easier to misunderstand these cards or misplay because you're not sure exactly what it does.
Yeah, it's a strange tension. I mean, Magic has a ton of appeal as a global game, and I love that aspect of it, right? And you certainly want people to be able to have their cards in their preferred languages and acknowledge all the cultures that play the game. I think that's a cool part of it. But you're right, communication is tough. There's a lot of information that needs to be displayed the whole time. I've moved away. I used to be big on non-English cards. I've moved away and gotten more into English foils recently.
You are a foils man.
Yeah. Picked up my full art foil Okos this week, as well as some full art foil Gilded Goose.
Oh, I'm sure those that were just a steal.
They were a steal. They were a steal.
You had to have them, huh?
They're so shiny, Craig. Like there's so much surface area for them to shine on when it's full art. Like it's really hard to pass up for me.
Brian, you've got some deep pockets.
No, I have some irresponsible spending habits. It's a much more reasonable way to put it.
Oh, mama.
I've got an unhealthy love for foils. Well, it's just a belief that Oko is going to be around for a long time. I think it's going to be a big story here this weekend, and certainly it's going to be a big story in Standard for as long as that card is legal. It will define the format.
What are you trying to say, Brian? What does that mean, as long as it's legal?
I mean...
You mean just until it rotates out?
Until it rotates out.
Okay,
in 2 years.
Yep, I'm sure that's what you were saying.
I don't know if you know how the general rotation works, Craig, but basically cards get to be in Standard for 2 years. We play with them, we enjoy them, and then they move on. Possibly to Pioneer. Possibly to Modern. Possibly to Legacy. Possibly to Vintage. Maybe it's in all those formats because the card's unbelievably good. Who knows?
It is kind of wild that a lot of times we see cards printed and they take a good long time to make their way into the more powerful formats.
Right.
And Oko just seems to have jumped the curve and just moved right into these other formats so fast.
Yeah, kicking down the doors of Modern, Legacy, and even Vintage. It did win the Vintage Challenge on Magic Online last week, so... Utopia Sprawl is the start for Jonathan Job here. Going to be naming red, getting access to second color of mana. Eldrazi Temple on turn 1 again, not bad. I think I see a second one in hand too for Ken Edwards. Let's see if Jonathan can find a better start this go around. Hex Drinker. Liquid Metal Coating. Okay, you got half the combo. Dismember on Hex Drinker. Deal with that before it gets out of hand. Ken going to fall to 16.
Yeah, and if Jonathan can dial up one of those Ancient Grudges here.
Ooh, second Eldrazi Temple, but no Eldrazi in hand for Ken Edwards.
Yeah, we could see Jonathan just lock up this game with just land destruction out of the Liquid Metal Coating Ancient Grudge combo.
Let's see. There is that second Temple. Warping Whale at the ready for Ken Edwards.
This is an awkward hand for Ken. I'm a little surprised he kept it.
Was on a mulligan to 6. But yeah, not a whole lot going on thus far. There you see Warping Whale. A lot of modes on that card. Exile target creature power, toughness 1 or less, counter a sorcery spell, or put a Scion into play. It looks like it's a Braid your Eldrazi Temple time. Magic as Garfield intended. And of course... that Warping Whale not going to be able to do anything about a Braid. Instant. Just a land off the top for Edwards.
Yeah, and
Power plant.
Ken didn't have a play last turn. It's going to be real hard for him to have a play this turn.
Yeah. There you see Liquid Metal Coating. I bought foils of these too, by the way, Craig, when Karn the Great Creator came out.
I bet that's a good looking foil.
It's a nice one. It's an expensive one too, but I'm happy I have them now. Second Liquid Metal Coating. Huh. You don't usually want the second one. I mean, if you find Karn, it's really nice because now you have effectively Rashad import where you get to shut off your opponent's mana every turn. But no Karn yet for Jonathan Job. Third Eldrazi Temple drawn for Ken Edwards. Usually that's great. No payoffs, though.
Yeah, it's interesting just seeing each of these players find some of their pieces and none of their payoffs.
No payoffs. Untapped Stomping Ground, followed up by a Seasoned Pyromancer. That's a nice little refill for Jonathan Job. Going to find 2 cards off the top. Does at least have some offense now. Nothing else, though, from Jonathan Job. It's time for Warping Whale to make an Eldrazi Scion, I believe. It's my interpretation of the body language there.
All right. Scion token coming.
How come no one's been a Scion token with their invitational wins? That's a pretty good one. No Eldrazi fans out there?
Yeah, so I think if you're a token, you either want it to be your thing, and not a lot of people have Scion as their thing.
Sure.
Or you want to see it a lot of play. And Scion tokens don't come into play very often right now.
Not so much these days. Well, here's a Karn the Great Creator from Ken Edwards. That's a nice little payoff, and that is going to shut down those Liquid Metal Coatings as well.
Yeah, this could be huge, because if he's able to find something to defend the Karn, he could just lock out the opponent with the Lattice.
Ken's going to take a look at the sideboard here.
Although Ken is far from doing that at this point because he would need 2 more lands and a creature to, defend the Karn with.
Mm-hmm. Just going to tick up. I would assume no target. Turn passes back to Jonathan Job. Now he's going to go ahead and look at the sideboard.
What are you telling us, Jonathan?
We're into the Karn shenanigans now. I'm just begging for a situation where both players have Karn and there's a lattice. Is that too much to ask for, Craig? I just want to sit here until the end of time. That's what happens when that goes down, right? Everyone just sits here and...
It's super awkward.
I can't wait. Here is Karn the Great Creator from Jonathan Job.
I mean, right now, Jonathan would have a real big edge, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's got a 2/2 compared to the opponent's 1/1.
Yeah, Jonathan also able to convert Liquid Metal Coating to an attacker here and able to pressure the opposing Karn. Can confirm both of those creatures are attacking Karn the Great Creator. Ken, thinking about some blocks, is going to go ahead throw that Eldrazi sign in front of the Seasoned Pyromancer. Karn loses a couple loyalty. Looks like Jonathan might have a follow-up here. Going to go ahead and crack a Wooded Foothills. What do you think about the decision to ban fetch lands in Pioneer?
Oh, it's great.
I knew you would love that. It is great. It's fantastic.
I mean, just this, what we're doing right now, where it's go through my whole library, find the one card that I need, and then shuffle. The opponent's got to shuffle and cut. It's just a bunch of wasted time.
Yep. Mechanically, it's no good. I like the idea of making new fetch lands that just put like basic land tokens into play. I think that's interesting. But obviously, a lot of the utility in fetch lands is in that shuffle effect, especially when it comes to a format like Legacy. Looks like the draw was Expedition Map for Ken Edwards. Does have a Thought-Knot Seer ready to go on his side, but that Hex Drinker, very threatening right now, Craig.
Well, it's everything, right? It's the Hex Drinker, it's the Karn. Even just having the 2/2 body out of the Seasoned Pyromancer is significant.
Here's the 4th Eldrazi Temple for Ken Edwards. Not bad. Going to go ahead and deploy Thought-Knot Seer.
And I don't know how Ken gets out of this situation.
Yeah, I think that Hex Drinker is ultimately going to prove to be too much. But you're right. There's a lot of problems on the battlefield presently for Ken Edwards. Going to go try and find an answer with a minus on this Karn. What is the pickup here, Craig? See anything that excites you?
So yeah, we see Ken pulling forward his better options. He can try to shut off the opposing Karn. He can try to shut off the opposing Hex Drinker with a Pithing Needle type effect. It's just such a rough spot that he's in.
So he's going to grab a Phyrexian Revoker. Makes sense. Get an extra body onto the battlefield. Contain one of those threats from Jonathan Job. We'll, of course, figure out exactly what it's going to name. Looks like Hex Drinker.
Yeah, it's got to be Hex Drinker.
Yeah, it makes sense to me. Jonathan going to take a little read of that Phyrexian Revoker. Thankful that Ken Edwards is playing with English cards there. And the turn heads back to Jonathan Job. Plenty of mana available now. Think that's just a forest off the top for Job. Does he want to head to the Wishboard?
And it's funny because so many of the artifacts that each of these players would tutor for have activated abilities as a big part of their draw, and neither of them can activate artifact abilities right now.
Yeah, if there's an appealing card in Job's sideboard that I see off the bat, Wormcoil Engine seems decent here.
Yep, that'd be great.
Like you said, most of the cards, though, being shut down by the opposing Karn. Is going to minus Karn. Let's see what he grabs.
Yeah.
Wormcoil Engine. And that is going to be deployed onto the battlefield. Makes sense to me. Outsizing that thought not seer.
Yeah, and Jonathan continues to be in a great spot here where all he really needs to do is get one more attack in on this Karn, and then he can go find the lattice and just lock up the game.
Yep. I think that's what he's playing towards presently. Turn going to head back to Ken Edwards here. Takes a draw, finds all his dust. Meh.
And well, it's funny because that card's, I don't know, it's good, not great.
Yeah, I don't know, like, given your choice with a wealth of sideboard options, I'm not 100% convinced it would still be in the deck for this matchup. But it's there now.
Well, it's one of the clean answers that he has to a Hex Drinker once it started to grow out of control.
Sure, maybe that's worth it.
It even gets, it's tough because it costs 7 mana.
Right.
That's the big problem, because there are a lot of things where if you clean up an Elf and a Utopia Sprawl and a Hex Drinker, it's like, wow, I got a lot of value out of this thing. But at 7 mana, doesn't matter at that point.
Yeah, controlling the Utopia Sprawls is pretty good as well. I'm getting more convinced as we talk through this that this is a worthwhile card to have. And it is going to be cast here. It's going to clean up Hex Drinker, Seasoned Pyromancer, both Utopia Sprawls. That does take Jonathan off of Lattice mana. Pretty important.
Yeah, it's just an interesting situation. Considering the starts that each of these players had, we've actually gotten a game out of this with decent back and forth.
Right. Yeah, this is an odd one to start the day, Craig. This isn't what I thought I'd be seeing in round one.
Well, I'm sure we'll see plenty of what you think we're going to see as the day goes on.
Sure, plenty of time for that still.
But for now, this is great.
Yeah, enjoying the little change of pace here. Well, Job now has a decision to make. What he wants to do with that Worm Coil engine. Could send it after Karn. That would leave some vulnerability to his own Karn. Going to go back to the Wishboard. Not seeing a whole lot I'm excited about at this point.
Yeah, I wonder if at this point, potentially it's just a Walking Ballista, just make a body, if you can make a 3/3 out of it.
Yeah, I might be more inclined to just plus and have my Liquid Metal Coating be a 2/2. Get a little extra loyalty onto Karn.
Sure.
See what Job thinks about it. I think the decision is close. There's points in favor of both of those lines. You also would like to believe that you can, at some point, get greater utility out of your Walking Ballista. Maybe that's not true, but looks like step one's going to be an attack here.
Yeah, I think once the opposing Karn is off of the board for either players, it just opens things up so much more.
That Revoker no longer having much utility with the Hex Drinker off the battlefield. Going to go ahead, hop in front of the Worm Coil engine. Job does gain 6 life. Padding that life total a little bit. Forest in hand, and I think Liquid Metal Coating is the other card in hand.
Awkward card to have.
Yeah, didn't really want your third copy of that. Modern Magic at its finest being played right now. None of your cards do anything. None of your options are good.
Oh, and Jonathan doesn't even have the double red for the Seasoned Pyromancer ability.
Right.
Because that would be huge, just being able to deploy 2 little chump blockers.
Absolutely.
Protect your Karn.
Absolutely. Yeah, that all is dust pretty critical, actually, on the last turn. I think this game would have spiraled very hard in Jonathan's favor had Ken not found that. I take back my trepidation.
So you asked me about the fetch lands. I'm glad fetch lands are in Legacy.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's an important part of the play pattern. The Brainstorm thing is a huge draw of the format.
Yeah, and just that format's supposed to be that powerful, right? Where a fetch land can find a dual land and you can cast just about any card in your deck right from the get-go.
Right.
Like, I see the draw to that. That's what that format's about. Modern, to me, it's borderline. I think the mechanical issues are a problem, and in a card pool so big and so powerful, letting people have access to all their colors all the time is problematic. So, that's kind of two strikes against it, but it's always been there, so it always will be there.
Yep.
Which is fine.
Yep.
But I think moving forward, having a new format that will have a huge card pool and be powerful, but no fetch lands, is great. I like that that's the starting point that they're working from. Part of me hopes that they never print fetch lands again, that they're never in standard again.
I'm with you. Oh, look at this.
Oh, jeez.
Time for an ensnaring bridge.
No, we didn't want that.
From Ken Edwards. Going to also deploy Expedition Map. That's a blank presently.
Well, this game just got so awkward from both sides.
Yeah. I think we're just going to be doing a little bit of draw go for a minute.
I mean, I would think this favors Jonathan in a big way just because he has the Ancient Grudges and Abrades.
You would assume so.
But it's also just this awkward situation now where neither player is going to do anything for so long.
Job's going to go ahead and draw a card. It was a forest, not the most exciting draw. So we're in a top decking situation. You mentioned the Ancient Grudges, you mentioned the Abrades, but whose deck do you think is more live to find a way to actually win this game? I still give the edge to Jonathan right now just because he can find a way out of the lock he's presently in.
Yeah, on the other side, there's one Endbringer.
Right.
The Walking Ballista can't be activated anymore.
Correct.
Neither player are going to be able to attack probably for the rest of the game. This is just one of those rare standoffs that we end up in that's not so exciting to talk about.
Right. Well, this is good. We're going to get all your thoughts on Pioneer during this lull in the game.
Oh, Pioneer's exciting. I mean, I think we're all excited for a new format.
I think so, too. This one in particular seems to be capturing the imagination of the player base. Looks like there is a decision to be made here. Jonathan minus Karn went and got the Walking Ballista. It's going to come down as a 3-3. I think Jonathan maybe just playing to when he eventually finds that out to the bridge. Warping Whale, the draw from Ken.
Okay.
It's not a very exciting one.
Oh, man. And this is what we're doing.
Yeah, it's going to be a long slog now. I think it would behoove both players to play these turns quickly. You want to make sure you have time for game 3, and there's not a whole bunch of decisions to be made. I want to see a lot of rapid fire, draw, pass, draw, pass.
Yeah, there's lots of time on the clock right now to finish this game. But the problem is if next game ends up in a similar situation,
right?
You don't want to pick up that draw in round 1 of your open.
Absolutely. Here's a Radiant Fountain from Ken, plus and Karn.
No, you can't do that.
Can't do that. Okay, we got back. Staying on 3. Jonathan takes a draw. It was a green card. I think his hand is Seasoned Pyromancer, Obstinate Baloth. Yeah.
All right.
So those did come in. Pretty ineffectual here.
The Seasoned Pyromancer would be nice if he finds another red source to actually dig deeper in his deck.
Of course. It also turns on those the one in the graveyard in case Ken's hand gets gummed up at any point. Maybe you can get attack with those 1/1s.
Man, we're going down with Karn again?
What are we getting this time? Bold predictions, Craig. Mystic Forge? That doesn't do anything. Does it? It does. You'd still be able to play off the top of your library.
You can't activate the Mystic Forge.
That might be fine. Oh.
Ooh, the boat.
Look at this. Skyship console flagship coming down. This is a good grab. Haven't seen that one in a while. Why don't we get that up on screen, take a peek at our friend the console flagship. There you see Sky Sovereign console flagship. Whenever Sky Sovereign console flagship enters the battlefield or attacks, 3 damage to target creature or planeswalker an opponent controls, and that means Karn off the battlefield.
Yeah, that was actually great for
Huge,
Ken
yeah.
here.
That's a big get.
The artwork on the flagship always reminds me of a cruise ship. Mm-hmm. Where it's just like got a lot of colors and some banners. There's blue on top, which I think is just the swimming pools.
Everyone on the flagship having a good time.
Yeah. And then it just smashes into something and deals 3 damage.
I think Jonathan Job drew a braid. He did. He drew a braid. And that's going to head towards that ensnaring bridge. Wow, this game got interesting pretty quick.
Yeah, these are just 2 crazy top decks that actually opened this game up.
Yeah. And that means Jonathan going to be able to find a lethal attack against that Karn if he so chooses. Also unlocking that Ballista. Yeah, Karn is going to die. Some life gain for Jonathan Job. Now I have no clue who is ahead.
Yeah, we went from 2 Karns and no attacks ever to no Karns.
Right. There is another Karn in Ken Edwards' hand. And he's going to go ahead and make a
Scion token.
Scion token, meaning he's setting up for a big turn here. I also think that's his 3rd Tron piece. That's a mine, right? And there's power plant and tower on the battlefield. So all the mana in the world now available to Ken Edwards.
Yeah, we could see. Does he still have a Ballista to tutor for? I'm losing track of how many targets we've pulled out of the decks.
No Ballista in the sideboard unless Ken moved it there after game 1. But here is Karn.
If he has a Ballista that he can find, he's got a lot of mana to dump into it.
Right. Also has access to Lattice, but Lattice not quite good enough yet. So what's the fine going to be?
Yeah, he only has 1 copy of Ensnaring Bridge, so that's gone.
Yeah, this Ballista also got to add a counter in response to the Karn. That means it's going to pick off some of these creatures if it so chooses. Joe debating what he wants to target. Gotta think you're going after the Thought-Knot Seer, right?
Yeah.
Is going to do so, it looks like. Looks like Ken debating some responses to that. Going to go ahead and crew up Sky Sovereign console flagship. Job takes a draw. Simian Spirit Guide. That unlocks the Seasoned Pyromancer in hand.
Yeah, that's doing something. Another interesting angle here is the Expedition map is now live.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a blast zone that Ken can tutor up.
Okay.
Which is a relevant card to keep in mind.
Did play a land this turn, right? We played the 3rd Tron piece.
So. I just mean moving forward.
Right, absolutely.
He has all the mana in the world, so the blast zone can blow up just about anything he would want to destroy.
Yeah. This game has been good, Greg. I've enjoyed this. This is different. Not what I expect from Modern.
A pleasant surprise.
Yeah.
Especially considering the way it started.
Absolutely. We're going to minus Karn. And what are the best options left for Ken in that sideboard? See a Basilisk Collar. That's weird. Pulling the Lattice to the front. Interesting.
I don't think any of those are good. Oh, there is a Walking Ballista.
Moved a Ballista to the sideboard.
Okay, there is a good one.
Yeah, that one's good. It's going to come down as a 4/4. And just going to pass the turn back. No swing with that console flagship. Makes sense. Job sitting at 32. Nothing you can kill.
Yeah, it's
3 damage.
One of those situations where, you know, the jockeying for position is all around Karn.
Mm-hmm.
And so getting an attack in here just doesn't do you anything.
I agree. Job drew Stomping Ground now. Going to go ahead cast Seasoned Pyromancer. Discards 2.
Discards 1.
Discards 1. Only 1 in hand. Takes the draw. I think I saw Arbor Elf Blood Moon.
Yeah, and Blood Moon would actually be pretty good on this board, but he can't cast it this turn.
Right. Could have floated the mana from the Spirit Guide, instead chose to get that 1/1.
Yeah, and I think I would have taken the same line, where the 1/1 seems more appealing than the random chance at a red card I want to play that turn coming off the top.
Right. Yeah, I think I agree. Here's the Arbor Elf follow-up.
Okay, he's just getting more mana with his Expedition map to pump into this Ballista.
Yeah, makes sense to me. And that Ballista's going to dominate this battlefield pretty quickly. Trying to get to the place where Lattice is reasonable.
Oh, wait, why'd we play the Temple instead of the Tower?
It's a good question.
Yeah, he just realized he did it. Yeah.
It's like 14 mana available.
Oh, he gets the collar. He gets the collar now, and it's just over.
Pops everything,
This is the machine gun's online.
Well, that's not bad. Gonna go ahead, play collar.
And you see,
gonna suit up.
He kind of gave that big sigh, like, okay, like I've got this now.
Step 1, kill your Worm Coil Engine.
Pichoo!
There you see Basilisk Collar. Incredibly effective combination with Walking Ballista. Used to see this in conjunction with the other pingers that were in standard. What was the name of the Spark Mage? Cunning Spark Mage? Was that it?
That sounds right. The O1?
Yeah, O1. I think it had Haste.
Haste, yep.
Too. And you combine that with your Basilisk Collar. There you see Cunning Spark Mage. That was the guy. Yeah, we're just doing the machine gun thing now. And I don't know how Joe comes back from this. We've said this a few times now about both players, I feel like.
Sure.
But
Ancient Grudge off the Tizzy Top. Let's see it.
Does he have it right now? I think that was just a land. Blood Moon, perhaps a turn too late to restrict mana meaningfully, although there's just a lot of lands on the battlefield at this point.
That Blood Moon still would have been big last turn.
It would have certainly tightened things up for Ken a bit.
Man, Ken just battling this whole time. We really thought that he was in a big deficit through the mid game, and he just carefully navigated his way to this situation. And it's looking real good for him now.
Job going to make it a suicide attack into this Karn, I think is the plan.
So last turn, Ken used the Ballista to shoot a lot of things.
Used it to shoot a bunch of things this turn as well.
Well, and I wonder if he should have left it big so he could, use it to activate the Skyship.
Interesting.
And then he still could, the Skyship can get into combat and block, and then he can still use the Ballista counters to shoot down other things.
Yeah, now the Ballista is gone. Karn going to tick up on collar.
Oop,
yeah, this is not castable.
Yeah, this Blood Moon is now huge on this board.
Every Eldrazi
what
now dead.
What a game! How ridiculous!
You have to question, what tricks does this Karn have left up its sleeve? It's Seasoned Pyromancer time. That's going to make more tokens. That means this Karn effectively pressured.
Yeah, this is big. Wow.
There goes Karn. This game is incredible. I can't believe this is still going on.
Yeah, I think there was a slight misstep by Ken in there with the walking ballista.
Uh-huh.
You know, he
now,
really...
Now he just has nothing.
He wanted to keep the Karn on the board in the worst way, but I think if he had just let the Karn die and kept the ballista, you know, it would just be dominating this game.
I agree. Now here's a bunch of Pyromancer tokens. Ken going to take 5 damage. Here's Karn.
Oh, man.
Minus go get Lattice, win the game? Are you kidding me?
Wow, the back and forth in that game. That was great. Let's get some more of that this weekend.
That was wild. Let's just let these two sit in the feature match all weekend. I mean, the game's going to be like this. That's fine with me.
Yep, checking the clock. Both players aware that they don't have a ton of time.
Yeah, going to have to hustle for sure in this game 3.
And this is where, yes, you need to hurry, but if I'm these players, I want to take a breath. I want to make sure I de-sideboard properly because there were so many tutors with Karn.
Great point.
And you don't want to accidentally shuffle one of those cards into your deck and then tutor for it later and have it not be there when you need it.
Who would be dumb enough to do that in a high-stakes tournament, Craig?
Unfortunately, it's a mistake that's happened to many a good player. And to my co-host.
Yeah, last Invitational. First time I had played with Karn in paper. Just presented 61.
Yeah. It's so easy to do.
Thanks for saying that, Craig. I appreciate that.
No, it is.
A lot to keep track of in games of Magic. But these players going to try and find a way to win. And I mean, look, both of these decks, we've seen longer games, but both of these decks can just win in a hurry. They can shut your opponent out of the game very meaningfully, very quickly.
Yeah, and it's interesting the differences between the online play, using the Moto client, and live play, where, you know, the online client just does everything for you. All the shuffling is instantaneous. Searching is easy and smooth. You don't have to shuffle the opponent's deck. So you only worry about your own clock. And generally, even with a complex deck, there's plenty of time on the clock to finish every round. And then you come to a tournament like this, and it's almost a different animal. Like, there's an extra skill set that you need playing long matches of Magic, where you need to be aware of when you need to play faster, when you need to play slower,
right,
et cetera, et cetera.
Neither player liking their 7. Both are going to go down to 6. I think we saw missteps from both players in that last game, quite frankly. I think there was points where Jonathan could have leveraged his card a little bit better. I think there was a good case for, like you said, keeping that ballista around and just letting that dominate the game.
Yeah, but a game that long, it's easy to look back in hindsight
Absolutely.
And second guess things.
Absolutely, 100%. Yeah, and if you don't think you make missteps in the vast majority of Magic games you play, I promise you, you are mistaken. It's a tough game we play here.
Quick mulligan from Ken. Just getting a peek of his opening hand. He had a Tron piece and another land. No early plays. I'm glad that he didn't even think about it. That was a definite mulligan right away hand.
Yeah, Eldrazi Tron can mulligan very effectively. Job seeming to keep here, although what I saw of his hand I wasn't crazy about, quite frankly. But maybe with Ken on a mulligan to 5, it's comfortable just keeping a functional 6. Three lands, Pyromancer, Blood Moon.
This is a dagger for Ken.
Ken going to 4.
Yeah,
oh, boy.
Didn't have a single land in that hand.
Oh, boy.
It's all right, Ken. Again, take a deep breath.
You can win on a multi-4. You really can with this deck.
Give it a good shuffle. And believe in the heart of the cards.
Sick Yu-Gi-Oh references. Love it. Big Yu-Gi-Oh player, Craig?
Never touched the stuff.
Really? I dabbled. Just the online versions. Oh, we could keep a 2 Tron piece expedition map hand here with a payoff.
I like what we're working with here.
Can make this work. Cards slowly being filtered out of the hand.
Yeah, the question is, what does he want the payoff to be?
Looks like Reality Smasher going on the bottom, so we're going to keep Thought Nazi as the payoff. What do you think about that, Greg? Nope. Nope. Reality Smasher.
So, yeah, so I like keeping Smasher here when you're on 4.
I think I do too.
You hope that your opponent has a clunkier, slower draw.
That was a big draw from Jonathan.
And if they've got that clunky draw, you just attack them with your 5/5 tramplers as many times as possible.
Look at what's going to happen here, though, Craig. It's not going to be pretty.
Are we looking at a Blood Moon?
It's going to be a turn 2 Blood Moon. That Arbor Elf off the top for Jonathan Job means the game plan is now accelerated, and it's Blood Moon time.
I hope he searches for wastes.
I mean, you just have to here. There is a waste in the deck, right?
2 of them, yep.
Yeah. He's going to go get the wastes. All right. Getting punished for Reality Smasher over Thought Not Seer keep here, but it's hard to fault. I mean, you just needed the most aggressive play possible, I think.
Well,
a true natural drawn off the top.
It's not the fastest hand, but I think... Hexdrinker.
Hexdrinker, yeah.
I was going to say, I think he would still want the 5/5 trampling haste body on this board.
Looks like Job just going to go ahead and deploy Seasoned Pyromancer here. Discards 2 cards, one of which going to create a token. Take a look at 2 fresh ones. Really trying to close the door here. Going to deploy a Hexdrinker and passes the turn back to Ken. Ken takes a draw, finds the Thought Not Seer. Okay. Takes a second Hexdrinker.
Yeah, I think this first Hexdrinker is still going to be too much of a problem.
It looks like it. Could level up to 5 at this point.
Yeah, it's going to turn into the 4/4 this turn and then be the 8/8 next turn. And without the extra mana acceleration from his lands, Ken's not casting all his dust this game.
Yeah, I mean, there's a Karn off the top. Assuming Dismember was still around as an out. Here's Reality Smasher. Wow, it's bad when Reality Smasher is too little too late. Honestly, this Multifor came together so well for Ken Edwards, but I think Jonathan's hand just lined up with the right answers.
Yeah, the turn 2 Blood Moon into doing whatever I want.
It's Hexdrinker time. The mini Progenitus is here.
It's so funny because I'm not sure I've seen a single game where I've liked Hexdrinker up until this point. We've seen people dabble with it in rock style modern decks. We've seen it played a little bit in Legacy, and almost every time I'm like, this card doesn't do anything for me. But in this Gruul Karn deck, he has the extra mana to dump into it. So I see the appeal here.
Of note, no attack on the last turn. Is going to go ahead and get Froggy on this turn. 6 damage headed Ken's way. Here comes Reality Smasher. Looks like we're going to throw Seasoned Pyromancer in front. Makes sense. You want to get those tokens.
Yeah, he's got the extra mana this turn.
Here's Chalice of the Void. No strong opinion on that card.
I think it should have been on 2.
Here's a Braid, 3 damage to hit the Reality Smasher. Discard my Ancient Grudge.
With a Braid and Ancient Grudge and the liquid metal coating, I think Chalice on 2 was the number you wanted there.
I'm inclined to agree. Here's a Utopia Sprawl.
Gotcha.
Good effort. Looks like Ken has a Karn here. Ken minus. Go get Ensnaring Bridge, play Ensnaring Bridge.
All right.
No cards in hand.
We're looking at an Ancient Grudge on the other side, aren't we?
We are. Gonna flashback Seasoned Pyromancer. Jonathan knows he's got that at the ready. Now here's a Braid. That'll do as well. Take out the Ensnaring Bridge, attack with everything. Looks like 9 damage headed Ken's way, and Jonathan Job with Gruul Karn.
Oh, mama.
Going to take down our first match.